Right. So again, thank you very much for joining us. We are very honored to see that you all came out in numbers on this Wednesday afternoon. This dialogue is part of our educational workshops, an installment of exactly that, educational installments that aim to bridge climate change, the academic aspect of things, the messaging with the realities that are on the ground. So I'm very, very excited that today for this webinar, we were able to get ordinary people really who have experienced natural disasters and can really speak from a point of having experienced a lot of the things that we hear about in textbooks, on the TV, in the news, in the newspapers firsthand. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our panelists. You would have seen them on the screen. We've got Sikelelwa Waka, who is in South Africa, from South Africa, and we're going to be hearing a little bit more about Siki as we, have the dialogue. We've also got Bertin Kasolene from the DRC, an incredible person. We're all going to be hearing about. I'm very excited about our panelists today. And then we have got Vanessa Kambi, who is also from the DRC. And maybe before we start, I have to introduce myself. My name is Mitchelle, and I am part of the education team from the African Climate Alliance. And together, I work with Xoli. She would have been greeting you and telling you all about the music we're playing in the beginning. So, Bertin, can you please introduce yourself?
Okay. Thank you so much. Did you hear me very well there?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, that's very good. So, first of all, thank you so much for everything, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for us who are in the evening now. So thank you so much. So my name is Bertin. I'm from the Republic Democratic of Congo. I'm an artist, choreographer, dancer, performer, and activist based here in Congo, in Goma especially. So I'm a coordinator and founder of Nguvu Africa, which is in the word in Swahili, which means the power of Africa. The organization works with young girls and promoting the social well-being of women. And apart that, also I'm a creator and coordinator of Inuka Dance Company. Inuka Dance Company is the dance company which advocates and talk more about all the challenges, all the things which the population is going through in our country. And we are advocating for street children while using dance and art movement as a tool to unite and help them get back to their normal life. So that's what I can say about me. And I'm happy to be here and share with you. And I can't wait to share and learn from you as well. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Bertin, for introducing yourself. I'm very, very excited to hear your thoughts around the conversation that we're going to be having around natural disasters and how they affect people. Vanessa, I don't see Vanessa, which is okay. Siki, can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, awesome. Good afternoon and to everyone. My name is Xoli Waka. I am from Cape Town. I live in Cape Town. I was born and raised here. And I think most importantly is I am excited to be here today and just to share my experience and obviously learning from and hearing other people's experience on climate change and just how it affects people in different areas. And I guess there's always the common ground in what people have experienced. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you very much. You see that Siki is a second-year Bachelor of Education student. She is quite passionate about working with people, because why else would you pursue a degree in education, right? So very, very excited to have you on today. I don't see our third panelist, but it's okay. As soon as she is here, we will be sure to let everybody know, and then maybe she can introduce herself. But yeah, maybe we can get started a bit by you, Siki, just telling us a little bit about your background in the space. So you are a certified yoga instructor, you're passionate about wellness. Can you maybe just elaborate more around why that is very important to you?
Oh. I'm sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Okay, thank you, Michelle. So yeah, I'm a yoga instructor. I don't normally say this because I feel like it holds so much weight into the title, and but yeah. Anyways, I'm a yoga instructor, and I'm really, really passionate about wellness. But I think for me, the underlying thing that I'm most passionate about is holding space for people to really to find themselves, to a safe space to where they can really go into themselves and to learn about themselves, to discover new things, and to I guess to move from there towards like forward with their life, because I feel like that's what yoga did for myself. um Whenever I would practice, I found space. I found myself being vulnerable in spaces held by other people for me in the yoga classes, where I was really able to go deeper into myself. And it was not just yoga, but it was um so many other tools that I did in my life around wellness and I guess being healthy. So for me, the basic thing there is really about holding space, safe spaces for people to really transform their lives, because I'm also a huge believer of like, in order for yourself to know where you want to go, you really need to understand who you are. You need to really be aware of yourself, your patterns, and then eventually you can actually set goals for yourself and be able to track. And yeah, so yeah, I think
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Siki. And I think wellness is a very, very important part of the conversation that we're going to be having today as well. And, the importance of holding space for people, more especially those who may have been affected by natural disasters, as it ties into the topic of this dialogue. So thank you so much for allowing us a bit of, space to look into your life a little bit. Bertin, I'm going to come to you and ask you how dance and the arts have been instrumental, or how you've been using dance and art to connect to people, and why that's so important for you.
Okay, thank you so much. Um, First of all, what I can say about dance, dance is me, and all around me is movement. And that's not just for me as a dancer, but I think it's everyone in the world, because everyone we are born as a dancer, because in our manner of eating, talking, walking, we are dancing, but without knowing. So what's connected me with dance movement and why I'm doing the dance is that it's the only way that I have for us to see what to transform and to give something great in my community. Because there are so many atrocities here in my country. Wars are there and women are raped. Children are really more in the streets. And I think me coming with the dance movement come as like solving the crucial problem which are really affecting my community. Because if we don't really respect women because they're mother of the nation, so the future of the children will be really uh, like something which is not really crucial. So we have really to see what to do so that we can really first inform people to know the crucial situation of what their women, our mother, they are going through, and that goes directly to the manner on how we have to say things clearly and directly to our government to see how to take their responsibility. And then I used to say that when the government is not really able to take their responsibility, so let us meet a responsible person through my body, using the dance movement as a tool to heal and unite people together. Especially through all those things, I'm using the dance as a therapy tool so that those moms, those children can be getting themselves and tell themselves that even them they can do something good and great for the positive sense, not just for my country, but for the whole world. Because when children are here in my country, I want them to dream big. They can even go and change things positively in Africa, in South Africa, in Kenya, in Congo, so in Rwanda. So I'm really trying to see those children as really a good instrument which can really impact positively the world. So that's why I'm using the dance movement as a tool to heal them, help them discover whom they are and how they can be solving some of the problem. And that's why I go directly in the uh, some of the choreography or talk which include how to get back to themselves and how to know more about themselves and to increase their awareness, because that is really special. Because when a children is in the street, everyone like goes away from him, and yet if we really don't care about that person, that children will be losing him, and we will not be even productive for ourselves, because we created danger that person, that the children who is in the street, he'll be the one being the bad thing in other people. So we have really to see what to do so that we can solve that problem. And
Mm.
in another way, I really used to say dance is the way for me to see what, like, to advocate for so many people in my country, and that's why I'm saying um, my body is a true weapon for positive change. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bertin. Wow. Two really incredible people really working toward holding space for people and allowing people to really find themselves through different mediums. On the one hand, we've got yoga. On the other hand, we've got dance, which I think is really, really beautiful. I am going to come back to you, Siki. I know that you are also passionate about women empowerment and leadership. And of course, education, because of obvious reasons now. We know that she's pursuing a bachelor degree in education. I want to ask a little bit about how, for those who don't know, Siki is also a collaborative team member of the Black Girls Rising based in Cape Town. And maybe you can just give a bit of input around the importance of an organization such as Black Girls Rising.
I feel like that is one of the biggest questions I've ever needed to elaborate on, because it's really more than what the organization stands for or what people may see we do on the outside. So the Black Girls Rising is an organization for young women that grow up in disadvantaged communities for Black girls. And then being Black girls, not limiting only to like Xhosa speaking, but to even the people of color. They are more than welcome to join our spaces. So I would say the most important aspect of an organization like that is because if you look at from like culturally, from a cultural lens, women in most cultures have been so disempowered and in disadvantaged positions, and our societies have progressed from that lens to what it is now, that we are facing so much of gender-based violence. And you will notice that it's not even like there has been triggers or there's been provoked. the males have been in a position where they are provoked, but it's because this this behavior has been so much progressed over the years and years, from generation to generation, that men are actually superior than women. And we often find ourselves in the spaces where, as women, we feel that we are smaller or powerless than men, which is an organization like Black Girls Rising is actually working to empower these young women that grow up in disadvantaged communities, that grow up on the root of in the societies where these cultures are so powerful, to actually empower these young girls that they are they are so much stronger than they think they are, and they actually capable of being anything they want to be in this world. Like they have the world in their hands to transform their lives to almost like anything. So that is the first most important aspect of an organization like this. And then also coming more to an individual being, because we know that a child, it doesn't matter if it's a boy or if it's a girl, but it's very much important that we we hold safe spaces again, and to nurture these young people. And for, I guess, for the reasons that I've already said, that it has become over time that the girls need so much spaces like this to grow, to give them tools, to give them information, to give them skills to navigate their growth in communities where there's no such thing, you know, in communities where there's no parent will sit their child, their girl child, and they say, let's speak about menstruation. Let's speak about how it feels to have someone that really loves you when you are in a relationship. Let's speak about the changes that will happen into your body when you reach 15, 16, you know? So there's so much that goes, even the boy child, but mostly I think the girl, because women over time have felt on the victim position. So organizations like this, they play a big role on supporting the girls from the communities to rise, man, to really rise behind and above the all the challenges, from cultures to 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 the most minimum household challenges you can imagine. Yeah, so I actually, I'm reflecting to myself as I'm speaking, because I'm the only girl at home, and I actually needed to remind my parents that I'm not gonna be able to do all the chores. So it's even the simple things like that that the the society, or even in our homes, is taking that, oh, you know, the girl will take care of that. And it I feel like for me, it's those things that build up and even become to a bigger thing. So yeah, so I feel like our organization plays a big role in counteracting the beliefs and the belief that has been set out by the culture, and now are taken as a norm into our communities, that this is the role of you as a woman. This is how you should submit to a man. You should do this. You cannot do that. You know, you are limited to here. So we
Right.
are actually, yeah, breaking those boundaries.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Siki. Um, I I think that's very, very important, and I want to link it to natural disasters and what happens in cases where areas have been affected by natural disasters, and how people then are also affected. So maybe I'll just move the conversation over to Bertin as well. And I know that recently in Goma, there's been a volcano that erupted and that affected close communities, surrounding communities. And maybe the first question would be how exactly those communities have been affected, And the second part of the question that I think I'll also repeat is how people have been coping with the devastation that's come from, potentially losing their homes and their livelihoods and everything that they own, and how they're coping. Because I know you're using dance as a way to allow children to cope with the devastation that they've been feeling. And before you unmute, I just want to remind everybody to please keep your mics on mute. And then we are going to have a question and answer session very, very soon. So if you can please just be a little bit more patient with us and keep your mics muted. Bertin?
Yeah, okay, thank you. For the first question, how the disaster affected directly the community. So even I was affected because the volcano it touches some of the parts in Goma town, and we were like, it was during the night, so we have to imagine that, and people from far, they have to leave and run out the town so that they can be at a safety place, which the government told them to go. And it was really hard because the population first didn't get the information at the right time. And you will see there were also people who were in the hospital, people like the old ones, they're not even able to walk around, to walk with themselves. So those are some of the things which affected them. And it was really hard for those kind of people. Even I, like in the school, they told us about that one, but not really into deep. And it was the first reality that I was experienced. The first one was there, but I was really a little child in 20, I think, 02. But this time I really experienced that, and it was really very hard for me to accept that and be familiar with it. So it took a little bit of time so that I can be like, yeah, this is normal, and I have to leave everything, like everything with me so that I can run first to be safe. And while those things, I was like I saw children, I saw man, and they were in the place where they have to find themselves so that they can get hope a bit. It was really hard for those families first to get a place to stay, because also overnight, and they have spent the night, like for families who didn't have people to welcome them in their families there, they will sleep in the churches, outside, without food, without water. And you see the cholera can be really affecting those children, even the malaria. So those are kind of things which really touches me, and that touches directly the families. And there is not even assistance from the government, you see. And while being there, they didn't know even how to take care of themselves. They didn't know even how to be familiar first with the situation so that they can adapt themselves to really live and say that, yeah, we are now out of home and we have to live like this. And the second question, if I can move directly, there's so many atrocities, like they live on that, they were like on those places, like the places which they welcome those people when they run away in the town, and then reaching again in the stages that they say that people they should go again, they should go back again in the town. So they have to come back in their places where their houses was destroyed. There is nothing, there is no assistance, but they have to put them in the camp. And while being in the camp, there are not really something which help those people to really get the normal life, so that they can help them discover, they can know more about the climate change first, the volcano especially.
Right.
And yeah, there's nothing which can help them to get a hope a bit, because while being there, I'm working with women with Govia Africa. There is no even part for women in the camp. So you have to imagine that. So there is no water, safe water. There is no really education, because some of the school was destroyed with the volcano. So there is no school for children. So you have to think about that during the day they're like, there's nothing for children to do. So Then when I sit down, I say like there is a need in the community and how to solve it. That's why I came up with a dance movement. I did a workshop and we were like uniting children every day, trying to play with them, give them a little bit of school, like in education, like if, trying to help them in English side, like English small classes, dialogue, and also uh, the dance movement. So the dance movement was really cool and the key because there are so many tribalism in our country. So children like there is no that collaboration. So we have to put
Mm.
those people together so that they can unite. They can put away that idea of this one is not in my tribe, so I have to leave that person. And while being there in the camp, also it creates another situation. So we have to solve that situation. So during the workshop with children, we were like teaching them dance movement, the traditional one, and how to live together, funding themselves and what they can do, and to cover that side of their don't go to school, but we can teach them like A, B, C, D, or one, two, three in English. They can getting something and 30 poetry. They can talk freely in front of people without shame. That like they can really say, even I, like kind of giving them time and kind of giving time to dream big.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
And through that, we say that, hello, we have to put those people together, the whole camp, mothers, fathers, with all those children. So we organized a show. It was a public one in the camp, and we invite all those people trying to share and see what their children they can do if they're well supported and if they can give hope and life to children so that they can be future leader, not in the past because the future doesn't really exist. We have
Right.
to we have to work on children or we have to resolve problem in our country right now because that is the crucial time which we have. That is our tomorrow. So as long as we are saying that we are putting those children in the past, like in our the government still puts like we are like this generation of our they are still putting us in the future. Like you are really leaders in the future. Not in the future
Mm.
because we need to work right now and solve things right now because things which I'm doing right now that project what the tomorrow will be. So
Right.
those
And sorry to cut you off there.
yeah.
I definitely think that that is very, very important. And I know that Siki, you were also recently affected by a natural disaster when you were visiting the Eastern Cape over the holidays. Um, I want to ask you to maybe narrate your experience for us and how that really just felt like and how people, ordinary people, children, women, men were affected by that disaster. If you can just let us know. And before I can give you the mic, I just want to also say that a lot of the times we find it very difficult to link natural disasters to climate change. So we invite you to please go onto our YouTube channel. You will find that we have some resources that will link this conversation. On Monday, we had a back to basics workshop exploring natural disasters that have plagued the global south or developing countries in recent times. And what we came out of that back to basics workshop with was that natural disasters and their effects are made much worse by climate change and the way and the rate that the climate is changing. So that's affecting a lot of people across the world. And so, Siki, I will give the mic to you and just repeat the question. I know that you were affected recently by a natural disaster. Can you please narrate that experience for us? More especially, maybe also touching on how children were impacted by this and what then happens to the area that was impacted by this natural disaster. Maybe then just talk about how things like people can't go to work anymore. What about the food situation? What about access to roads? Um, yes, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Sure. It's one of the most traumatic experience I've had in my life. So in the summer holidays in December, my family we went to the Eastern Cape. So we originally from the Eastern Cape, in Butterworth, and right like at the bottom of the village, we actually one of the few houses very close by the ocean. And then my house is actually a one is the last house, and then there's a big forest right in front of us, and then rivers that are crossing under our under our gardens, which is the rivers that are used by the community for access to water. So what happened is I don't remember the date actually, but so it was just a normal day the day before, and then when we woke up the following day, my brother started vomiting, and then he got worse and worse and worse. Obviously we started being worried, but when you started, it's just like, oh, maybe it's just a stomach bug. um and then but it got worse, and then he started becoming weak as the day went on. He couldn't eat, he could not drink anything. um so before that actually it happened, ever since we went on the Eastern Cape, it has been raining like floods, heavy rains, and a lot actually has been affected by the floods from just like electricity, because we do have electricity in my community, but it's not a very strong electricity. When there's heavy rains, then the electricity just get disturbed, and the whole village has like no electricity up maybe for 3 weeks, because it's actually it takes a whole lot of process to call the ESCOM people to come and to fix, and then they will take another 4 days or even a week to come, and then it's actually a long distance to travel from town. It's actually 3 hours to travel from town to our village. So we have been experiencing that on and off on electricity, and obviously we cannot connect on our phones because network is very disturbed. So when my brother got sick and he became worse then. He did not eat. He was really like losing a lot of energy in his body, and he was really weak. And then up to a point that um, I think it was almost on the afternoon on the day when he started to not being able to breathe, having short breath, and he could not stand up straight, and he could actually not lie on his back. And he yeah, I just remember him bending, because he felt like when he explained that there was a hole, like just maybe in your diaphragm area, that he when he lifted up his upper body, it was closed, but also when he's lying on his back, he couldn't really breathe in and out. And the hospital was not it was not an option because it has been raining, and we don't have a tar road in my village. When it rains, no cars go. Like no car can actually be on the road because the road is like mud. Otherwise, they will get stuck. So there was actually no option for us to get to the hospital. Like the hospital that is very close to us is 3 hour drive from my house, and then the clinic is actually, it's not even a good like condition clinic. It's just, I don't know actually why it's even called a clinic, because you can't get help. So we were stuck with him at home. It was raining. He was in this situation where we didn't know what to do. I found myself looking for a 2 liter bottle, because I was trying to make like to help him to breathe. I was trying to make an oxygen aid, but I didn't even know how to do that. But I mean, I was like, I don't know, I was trying, and I was just thinking on the moment and to So it was really traumatic to a point. I mean, we did not have any help. We did not have any alternatives. We didn't know what to do. We were actually waiting and to accept whatever that was going to happen, and we didn't know what will happen actually. So, I mean, had it not rained, had it not been flooding, we would easily take a car to the hospital, and then it will be sorted, I guess, from the first few hours of him being sick. So for me, that was actually the most the most traumatic. I'm just so grateful and glad that he was okay, and I cannot actually tell you what we did to help him, but I think it was just the grace that he was saved, because we still don't
Mm,
believe he's alive right now. And then just to move from my point of view, like personally, but to look and to what I've observed in this year. So every year well, almost every year in summer holidays, my family will go to the Eastern Cape, and I have never seen this heavy rain ever before. Yes, it has rained, but it was just like really like rain for like for a week, and then that's it. But this year we were literally indoors the whole time because the rivers were full. And then to see, actually, we lost also a cow at home due to the rain. It was stuck, and then we couldn't actually saved it. And then yeah, we lost it. And then actually, so many houses were been destroyed by the floods. Um, it's so disturbing. It's so disturbing to actually watch people running from house to house because now the house has been destroyed by the flood. And then there's one neighbor of us, their house is literally facing the east, where the rain was actually coming from, and they slept on water each night. There were babies, and they were actually sick. There's a baby in that house, and that baby was like a year old, and they were sleeping on wet floor every day. And that house has actually one. It's like a one house. They didn't have an option to move to another house in their house.
mm.
So there's been a lot of disruptions, and I've actually noticed because my father also, he uses a lot of plants, and he used to grow his own crops. Sorry, my son is here. And then he planted a lot, but our garden did not produce anything, and most of the village
Mm.
did not plant because of the rains. And in my village, people, they still live in the very olden wells. They plant their food. They have um they are livestock, like cattle, chickens, cows. So it is so disturbing for them not to be able to plant their food, not to be able to release their cattle to graze on the grass, because now what is happening on the soil actually is, I didn't know this. My father told me that the more the floods, the soil was producing, he called them like alien plants, I think, which is the plants that are not actually can be used for food. So
Mm.
they're not needed by the community, and the plants that they grow themselves for food didn't sprout. So it is
Wow.
actually a huge, I think it affects on the again, as you said, like on food, because I mean, in our village you have to travel. If I go to town, I wake up at 5 and I'm back at 8 in the evening. So I mean, it's not as sufficient as in the urban areas or in the township, where you can actually access, a mall right next to you. So
Right.
yeah.
So from just hearing that, I I want to invite Vanessa to speak a little bit more on what you've just mentioned now, because Vanessa is very much involved with agriculture, and she is our third panelist for today. Welcome to the discussion, Vanessa. I think you heard sort of like the end of Siki's insight and her experience, her talking about food insecurity and how a natural disaster such as a flood that she personally experienced affected the ability not only to access really important, services like going to the hospital and being able to actually get help, but also access to shelter as well as access to food. And so I want to bring you in on the conversation here and ask you to please introduce yourself and then give a little bit of insight around what really happens when a natural disaster strikes, what happens to the food, what happens to the community, and what happens to the people. Can you see the notification, Vanessa, come up? Can you try again? We have a question in the chat. And the question is, what are practical ways being used by communities to mitigate climate change? And I think one way that we can rephrase that question is, what are practical ways that communities are using to deal with the effects of climate change? And maybe even lessen the impact of climate change. Can I give this question to Bertin?
Yeah. Thank you so much for this show. I think I have to be really direct what the community did here in our country, my place. So they first look for more information about the volcano and how they can be solving that problem easily without getting more attacked by the eruption, and also to plant more trees so that it can also block some of the situation, and also to let uh, to contribute on something crucial in the community, and also to do what they call to recycle plastic so that they can reutilize it in other things like bottles. They can build some of the things, and that can in the outside of people. So that's what the community is doing right now, and also to get more people being solved, like being informed in the situation if they are passing. So that's what I can say about the people.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bertin. Siki, what do you think communities are doing to better deal with the effects of climate change? Do you think communities are ready at all to deal with the effects of our changing climate, which will obviously make disasters, natural disasters, much worse? Are we in a position to deal with those effects?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I was actually thinking, and I'm thinking specifically about my.
I think you're on mute.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
I can.
Okay. So I was saying it's interesting that you say that, because I was actually thinking specifically about my village, and I am thinking, are they even know what's happening, and how they can actually mitigate this situation they found themselves in? Because in my village, first of all, it's as I've said, that the people of my village, they still really lived like like in the olden days way, they're not really educated, not only about climate or environment, but almost about anything. These people, they didn't go to school, and what they know is actually planting their food, which is they've learned from their parents as well. It's like passed on information and education from home. It's not like they can read or they have access to 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 televisions, to news, to information that teaches them about these natural disasters and the climate change and the impact. So I don't think they are ready, and I don't think no, they are not ready, and in so many ways, not just like in a practical way of dealing with the natural disasters and climate change, but also even emotionally. And because for me, I think for me, it goes beyond just being closed down on a house because there's flood outside, but there's obviously a very huge emotional side that we need to look at, and how this climate change and the natural disasters are affecting humans on an emotional level. So no, I don't think so. I don't think we are ready yet. I still feel that we have a long way to educate and to meet these people, especially the people in the Eastern Cape or in the rural areas, that actually they are the most impacted people, but also I feel like they just left there on their own to survive, to deal with what they don't actually know, which is, I feel it's like setting them up for failure, because I mean, how I don't know. So yeah, that is my thinking around it. And actually I also thought about uh also what I've seen in my community
Right.
this this summer is that even though most people, they didn't plant their food because I mean they've been rain, and they don't have the very recent machinery to plow, so they still like use the cattle, the old ways of doing. And then, but what I saw the community coming together with, for me, it's very practical, but also is very rooted in our cultural norms, is sharing food. Like I've never seen the kindness that is there in our community, like how it just brought people together and being able to to inspire people to share what they have with one another. Yeah. So that actually
Yeah.
was that was for me, like, the highlight of it all, to just see the community coming together in that way.
I think that's so beautiful. And specifically the part where it really just brings us back to the spirit of Ubuntu, and you are because I am, and I am because you are. So that is really, really beautiful. We have a comment and a question in the chat, and it says, I'm listening to the following and following the conversation from Zambia. This is from Ernest. This discussion makes me understand the real impacts of climate change. We are all facing similar effects. At an individual level, what should each one of us be doing to address climate change? Before we answer that question, I want to ask if Vanessa has been able to unmute. Vanessa, I'll give you another chance. Are you able to unmute? Okay, not yet. Xoli, can I ask you to be part of this conversation at individual levels? What can we do, or what should we be doing to address climate change?
Thank you, Michelle. And I'm sorry to Vanessa, because I feel like what she had to share was going to be such valuable to the space. And I'm wondering, Vanessa, maybe if you can even send me a VN that we can play back to, just to the space so that your voice is on your story is being shared. I mean, Siki shared such an interesting perspective, and I'm not sure if you guys know that the new IPCC report just came out yesterday. I know it's a very big document, with 38 pages that just reporting of like where we are in terms of climate change. And I actually took some time to read 3 pages from that report, and I totally just felt depressed. Just because of the numbers and just the report of like really what is happening in our climate. And it feels like we are actually in a very critical window of action, of really looking how we as individual can do something, because we've seen, and I think when Anna said that we all share the same, it's the same story. If you can go to Zambia, you go to Congo, you come to South Africa, like marginalized people are the ones that are feeling the brunt, but we actually not the ones that are causing the effects or contributing to the carbon's emission. So I think as individuals, for me, the very important thing that we can do for ourselves and for our people is to educate ourselves so that we know about these issues. I'm going to go back to Sike again, like she said, that in her village, people are living on indigenous knowledge, which is incredible. That's where sustainability comes from, which has now been commercialized. But if we can go back to our ways of living, where we can really put some of that indigenous knowledge in the forefront, but also educate people on the rapid change that is happening to our climate, so that they at least carry awareness, that they know that when these big natural disasters are happening, that they are not just natural, they are caused by climate change. And then once you educate someone, I feel like they then inspired to be the change or create the change. And maybe other ways that they could be inspired is to really hold government accountable, because we do have the power to do that. There's a saying in South Africa that united we stand, divided we fail. And I think there's a lot of young people who are really rising, who are ready to speak up and really to advocate for these issues. And if we can come together as a collective, not as countries, not as South African, but as a collective, as Africans, and ignite that Ubuntu that Michelle spoke about, and really stand together and call our government and hold them accountable. Because as much as we can come up with solutions and around adaptation, simple things like, conserving your water, switching off lights, planting, but those things don't make a huge difference when our government is still funding fossil fuels. So, because those two things definitely need to go hand in hand. And it's something for me that came out strongly in the IPCC report, that yes, we can push the adaptation, but it doesn't carry so much weight when it's not met with mitigation, because both of those things, we need them to really reduce the rapid of how climate is changing. Yeah, so I think I'm going to leave it at that, because I want to hear also from other people, because I know also we have people that have wealth of experience, in this call, people that are doing incredible things in their countries. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Xoli. I think that is very, very important. I also want to just say that the word mitigation means the act of reducing the severity, seriousness, or painfulness of something. So when we speak about mitigating the effects of climate change, we're speaking about reducing how serious or impactful it is on groups of people, countries, regions, and yes, we have another question. in the chat, and it said, is there any way the gender equality achievement issue is fueling more energy and active participation to talk and curb climate change? I will just try to rephrase this question in the way that I'm understanding it. I think the question is asking if the conversation around gender equality, or us wanting to push for gender equality, if that in itself is allowing for there to be active participation and for talks to be around fighting climate change. Bertin, I'll pose this question to you. And Bertin is just coming back in the room. So if you look at a lot of the research that has been provided, and most specifically in African countries, you find that women and children are the ones that are most impacted by climate change or the effects of climate change. And most especially women who are coming from areas and regions that would be classified as developing or underdeveloped. So what happens when you ensure that there's gender equality, there is access, these same women are educated, you find that they are able to share the information, and a lot of the times they're able to take action much more quickly, which means that the conversation around mitigation and allowing for climate change to not affect so many people severely, that in itself, by pushing for gender equality, you're also at the same time pushing for mitigation. And most especially if you allow for there to be a transfer of knowledge, transfer of education, while also creating opportunity for women to take up space in areas and regions that they have not always traditionally held space. And I hope I managed to answer that question. Another one says, can poverty be a factor behind some activities causing climate change? And before we answer that question, I just want to apologize and say I am very aware that we are a little over time. And I hope that you can forgive us for taking a little bit more of your time. But I also want to ask that you stay until the end, because again, like Xoli mentioned, I think that, you know, there's a wealth of knowledge here, and would definitely love to hear more questions and maybe even inputs on what the conversation has been like. So can poverty be a factor behind some activities causing climate change? Sigi? Do you think poverty can be a factor behind some activities causing climate change?
Okay, just give me a moment.
No problem.
I actually I don't know. I don't really know where I stand with that question. I feel like saying yes and a no, because if you really look at poverty, and you look at the people that experience and go through poverty, or the communities that are really into deep poverty, and you think about what are they accessible to, and you think about what are they using on their daily lives, and you think about how that distribute, or how that contribute to climate change, and then I'll be like, then what's there compared to the big companies that Xoli talked about, that really distribute and use so much of fuels, gas, and all that have this so much impact on the climate change. So in that perspective, then I will say no. But then on the other side, where I believe that on our daily lives as human beings, we contribute so much in climate change, which also Xoli spoke about that. Even if they don't, the legal things that we do on our daily basis, on our habits, they don't so much affect the climate change, but they are actually, if you think about it, and then I'm thinking basically about the now I'm thinking about the menstruation and the girls and the pads that it, if you think about one girl using a one pack of pads a month, and then you think about the time that they will spend menstruating, and you think about all the girls in Cape Town, for instance, that are using disposable pads. So when you look at one person, it may not be that influential. But if you look at now at the bigger spectrum, all the girls, all the young women that are menstruating in Cape Town, then it becomes, like a bigger effect. You know what I mean? So in that case, yes, of course, the legal things that we as human beings in our behavior on our daily basis that we do, and we think, oh, this is just, like it doesn't add so much effect on the climate change, but remembering that you're not the only one doing that, then it sums up to a big effect. So yeah, I'm there, yes and a no. And then I just want to touch on what you said actually, or maybe the question that was asked before on gender equality and climate change. I know we are running out of time, but actually I just want to share my experience with the Black Girls Rising Again. And I always look at our organization as also, as I've said, that we empower these girls to take up space, man, as you said. So I'm just always amazed and overwhelmed by how these girls are actually taking out social issues that they influence or they experience in their communities, and how much of them are actually aware of climate change and wanting to make a difference. So again, for me, it's like we were not aiming into that spectrum of, okay, climate change or social issues, but we were just providing a space for them, and how they use the space, they use the information, they use the tools to just branch out into different issues that affect human beings on earth. And I think that is powerful. And I think linking it back to to gender equality, now these girls, they feel so strong that they can actually change what they don't like in their societies, what affect humans in a bad way, and what they feel like they can contribute their voices to make a change. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think that's very important as well. Because we're running out of time, we'll take one more question. I saw a hand. Techno, I saw that your hand was up. Did you have a question for our panelists?
Not really. I wanted to make a contribution towards the same question that was posed as with regards to poverty being a cause of some of the activities causing climate change. And I must say, Siki kind of answered the question. No, in as much as, yes, there are some activities that are causing climate change, but to a certain degree, as in our case in Africa, studies have shown that we contribute less than 4% of the greenhouse gases, or in terms of emissions that are actually affecting the amounts of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. On the part of poverty, I'll give an example of like in my country, Zambia, we depend on charcoal as a source of energy for cooking, and also maybe heating food, and also during cold seasons to keep ourselves warm. Charcoal involves cutting down of trees, which will contribute to a certain degree in climate change, in that um, trees act as sinks and also as sources, in that they store carbon, and then during photosynthesis they do provide us with oxygen, which is an important element in the environment. On the other hand, I think there was also a question that followed after that about mechanization. I think it is a mechanization from the industrialized nations that is actually the leading cause of climate change, because it is them that are actually having more emissions. If you compare the activities that we have as in the African setup and those that are out there, we are poor, and we do what we do maybe to earn a living, but then the effects or the impacts that we have on climate change cannot be compared to those developed nations. So it is a yes and no kind of question, depending with the perspective or the angle in which you are looking at it from which
Right.
area. If we talk about it from the African point of view, if it was only Africans, then I would say no, because the rate at which the climate is changing, the rate at which global warming is happening, cannot be attributed to just the mere deforestation that's there. In as much as
Yeah,
deforestation is about.
and maybe I can speak a little bit more on that. Africa in itself contributes to under 4% of all global emissions. So if we're only looking at Africa, then we would not have climate change. But unfortunately, we look at the global scope of things and we find that the more developed countries are the ones contributing the most to the destruction of our environment. And with that, I just want to read a comment by Akim. It says, women, children in the old are considered to be more vulnerable and affected more by climate disasters. Yes, gender equality is needed. Equal access to information and opportunities and all of that. This helps to effectively cope with climate disasters. Poverty, yes, maybe also leads to climate change, but it is also one of the reasons why communities are more vulnerable, because they cannot cope with disasters. And I think this also came up a little bit in conversation when Siki was narrating her experience and spoke about how they don't have access to tarred roads, but also town is 3 hours away, the clinic that's close by is not functioning. That all is a result of funds maybe not being allocated and maybe not even being used to the best of, what they're supposed to be used for. And with that, I would like to thank you all for coming to our dialogue where we spoke to Sikelelwa, Waka and Bertin Kasolene about their personal experiences with natural disasters, where Bertin had experienced the eruption of a volcano in Goma, and Siki experienced flooding and was in a very, very vulnerable position. Siki, I invite you to please just share a word, maybe just one line of encouragement to everybody who's trying to fight the fight. What would you say to that person today?
Thank you. Sure. I think I would say, first of all, to remember that it is not the fight of one person. I think when we start to recognize that you are actually not alone in that fight, and then there's so much strength that rises to know that there's a huge community and a collective of people, in fact, humans that are actually on the same fight with you. And I think,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Siki. And thank you so much for being a part of our panel. Apologies, Vanessa could not make it. We experienced some technical difficulties, but to everybody who interacted, to everybody who had a question, comments, thank you so much. And we hope to see you at the next Back to Basics workshop and the dialogue. We will send out information closer to the date. And for those who may be in South Africa and maybe even in Cape Town, we have an in-person workshop coming up very soon. So please have a lookout, keep a lookout on our social media. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, as well as YouTube. And our name, if you type into any of those social medias, African Climate Alliance, you will find us. Thank you so much for joining and being part of the conversation today. Xoli, would you like to say something before we close off?
I think you've said it all, Michelle. Yeah, thank you to everybody that stayed. Please follow us on social media, and we look forward to following Back to Basic. And again, like if you know anybody, like people in Cape Town, please, just share our information with them. We will be having an in-person workshop. Yeah.
Thank you all, and have a wonderful week ahead. And until we meet again. Bye-bye.